Hello and thanks for joining me for another GT7 video. This is again around Daytona for the Daily Race C, but then we've also got a tip at the end as to how you can get 2 free cars. If you're new to sport mode, then you may not already know this. So we've got an interesting race here. Something a little bit upsetting happened a little way into the race, and it's just interesting to see how you can actually use the strategy in these races with the fuel and the pit stops to some good effect. So we're going to go through the race and then we'll get into the tip as to how to get the free cars. Let's see how it went. So this is the race we're going to go through first. You can see it's a pretty strong field. Since they reset the quali times, I've only managed to get down to a 45.2, as I haven't done too many laps since they reset from everybody abusing the bus stop glitch that was found. But we're starting off here in 14th, and we've got some good opportunity to move our way up here. So starting off behind Scrabster, and what I've done with the setup on this car is what I think a lot of people have figured out now you can do is extend the gear ratios at the end, particularly with 6th gear, put the ratio to a little bit of a higher top speed, and what it means is that you're able to save a lot more fuel through the race. So you haven't really got to use fuel maps, you can just short shift, do a little bit of lifting and coasting into certain corners, especially if you've got the slipstream, and that's more than enough to save the fuel that you need to make it the whole way round with having to pit at lap 5. So starting the race off here, I'm just taking it fairly easy, and as you can see I'm short shifting in all the gears, so making sure I'm not revving any of the gears out to get the most out of the fuel economy of the car. And we're going to just try and hang on the back of this pack. We are dropping off ever so slightly, but ultimately the most important thing is that I don't want to be worrying about fuel and having to mess around with fuel maps. I just want to be able to short shift and yeah, make it to the end of lap 5 using that. So as we come round for the first time onto the bank section here for the long back straight, we're still nicely in the slipstream, dropping off a little bit, but not enough that we're having to worry at all. And we're going to come into the newly updated bus stop. I don't know about everybody else, but this has been a really tricky section. I think you either absolutely nail this, or it can be the undoing of you in a lot of races if you just get a little bit wrong, and still really easy to pick up a half-second penalty if you hit just the wrong part of the yellow curbing on the right, which it seems a little bit strange to me. I wonder if they might change those track limits, but for the time being that's what we're dealing with. We've got a bit of a better exit than Scrabster through the bus stop that time, so giving him a little nudge along, but he doesn't seem to want anything to do with it, so he pulls over to the side. He's going to let us through, so we are going to have to rev 6th out here a little bit more than I would have liked to. I would have quite happily just sat in his slipstream, but he wants to drop back and be the one to follow in the slip instead, and managed to get the car stopped nicely here. There is Spaniard going wide there just in front, and Scrabster also goes a bit wide and lets Rimka through behind us, and we're up a couple of positions so far. So I think we had one spin out at the beginning of lap 1, and then that better exit letting us get past Scrabster there. So now we're on to the back of 11th place. Still just going to be careful to be short shifting, making sure we're just keeping the car on the track and not out-braking ourselves either. That seems to be one of the big things in this game, is that you can really easily out-brake yourself compared to GT Sport, where I know you could brake late and downshift like a madman and get away with it in that game. You really can't in GT7. You've got to be a lot more controlled with the braking, as Rumpy just goes a bit wide there. Unfortunately, we do make a little bit of side contact, but managed to get through relatively sensibly, and hopefully he wasn't too upset about that. By the time we come down to the bus stop, he's looking at coming down the inside, but luckily he doesn't send it. A very dangerous place to be going side by side through there, and we make it through cleanly enough, although did lose a little bit of speed. But by the time we come down to the end of the straight here, we have actually kept our gap as they are fighting behind. Outbrake myself a little bit there, but we're going to get on the power early enough to stay in front of the German who's now behind us in 12th place. So 3 places that we moved up so far here, and thought that the German was going to go for a bit of a move up the inside, so I've just sort of turned in to close the line off, and had to use first there as a result to get the launch out of the corner, but managed to stay in front for the time being. And we really need to chase down now, got max power and Womble leader, because I've left a bit of a gap out because of the fighting that we've been doing, as the German absolutely sends it up the inside and decides he's coming through. And another really important place to hit your brake marker here, but again the Spaniard is just going to come up the inside. I really don't think there was even a gap there, but he made one, so I was a little bit irritated about that move at the time, but at the end of the day I suppose now at least I've got some slipstream to keep saving that fuel. Just checking the fuel there, I've still got 2.7 laps left, and we're about half a way round lap 3, so that'll be more than enough very nervous here because the French driver Remke behind us looks like he's going to make a move, and he does actually send it, and it literally bounces off my door and comes through, as there's absolute carnage through the bus stop with Daplin and another driver having had a bit of a coming together. And with that, we're up into 11th place, so even with those two slightly aggressive overtakes from the German and the Spaniard in front, and the Frenchman to be fair, all three of them, we're still in 11th place and not in too bad of a position. Now, as I did think, the German and the Spanish driver were having quite aggressive moves with myself, and I don't know if it's netcode or what, they had a bit of a coming together there, and they've both spun each other off, but somehow I get a 3-second penalty for that. Now, I get that you're not supposed to overtake under a yellow flag, but both cars that were involved in the incident were, at a walking pace, and apparently I'm not supposed to have overtaken that German in the situation. The French driver in front obviously just snuck through just in time to not get the penalty for not serving. So what I decided to do is something a little bit different with the strategy. So I'm going to serve my penalty here, and as soon as I've served the penalty, I'm going to come into the pits. So I'm already going to lose loads of time because of that 3-second penalty, but instead of carrying on down the straight and having to then re-accelerate back up to speed, I'll just come into the pits, and I'm going to try and fuel save to get an extra lap's worth of fuel out of the car. Now, the R8 is a tricky car to fuel save in because it seems to want to just drink it all up. I barely normally get to the end of the race with about 0.1, 0.2 of fuel left, even when I come in at the end of lap 5. So we're going to fully refuel here and come out and see what we can do. Now, I'm going to have to be short shifting even more than before. You'll see that I'm going to be shifting up here nearer to sort of halfway through the gear a lot of the time than I am towards the end of the gear like I was before. And we're also going to be using some fuel maps, and hopefully that's going to be enough to save the fuel that we need to make these remaining 6 laps to the end. Jumping forward here then to the start of lap 6, and this is when all the other drivers are going to be coming out of the pits, and it's not ended too badly for us. I didn't have the greatest outlap there, but we have managed to come out in 13th place effectively after the pit stops has been served. We've got Gone Baby chasing us down here behind, but not too big of a gap to the cars in front in 11th and 12th. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure exactly what happens, but Scrabster goes off there onto the grass. I don't know if he might have got a little bit of a tap from the Portuguese driver, and that has gained us a place back up into 12th. Now, Gone Baby seems to have a lot more pace than us here, but as we get onto the exit, onto the back straight, I think he just goes a bit wide onto the marbles there and loses all of his traction and doesn't get as good of an exit. So that's left us on our own a little bit more now, and we're going to have to do whatever we can just to catch up with the driver in 11th in front. But at the same time, I need to not use too much fuel when I'm doing it, because I'm on the verge now at the moment. As I come across the line at the end of lap 6, it's easy to think you've got 3 laps left, but you've actually got 4 laps left because you've got to do the whole of 7, 8, 9 and 10. So I'm already down to 4.1 laps of fuel, and as you can see, I'm not anywhere near the finish line yet, so we've definitely got fuel saving to be done. We've got Gone Baby chasing us down, who's well in the slipstream now, but does seem to be fuel saving a little bit from the fact he's not gaining on us too much. You see here I'm switching into fuel map 3 and short shifting really early, thinking he may give us a little nudge here and bump draft us, but if he comes past, it's absolutely fine. I'll drop into the slipstream, and that's exactly what happens. So as you can see there, right up into fuel map 6 until we come into the braking zone, and unfortunately Gone Baby just outbrakes himself a little bit there, so we're going to come back through, but benefited from that little bit of slipstream at least down the front straight. And once again we find ourselves sort of in no man's land, so we're going to be just working to keep it clean, do whatever we can to have the pace, and that pack behind does seem to be fighting quite a bit. You see them going side by side out the exit of turn 2 there. Jumping forward then, as we come into the bus stop, and we see again the yellow flags, very popular place for the yellow flags to be getting waved on this track, and we are managing to gain a little bit on H13, and he then also gets a penalty. So we've got ahead, got Max Power unfortunately has fallen victim to some kind of incident in the bus stop, so we're going to come past him, and H18 has got this half-second penalty to serve. So again, using fuel maps, still got 3 laps of fuel left, but we haven't quite crossed the line yet, and going to have 3 laps once we do. So still a little bit behind on the fuel saving here, but we have finally, with the help of that penalty for the Portuguese driver, managed to get back into some slipstream. So we're going to try and use that to our advantage. I didn't know whether we might be able to go for an overtake here, but he does get the better traction and the Lamborghini there. and is going to pull off back in front. So I'm going to just tuck in behind, do what we can to make sure we're going to make it at least the end of this race. But net effect of what's happened with all the penalties has not been that bad. Okay, there's been a couple of incidents, but I think when we got that penalty we were in 11th or 10th place, and we're back up into 10th place. So the early pit stop and the fuel saving at the minute seems to be working for me, and we're going to see what we can do to hold on to this position, or maybe even make it into 9th place. So I'm going to just hang on the back here of the Portuguese driver, but Gombaby did seem to have some pace, as we said earlier, and is going to be also looking to take the top 10 spot off of us, as we once again go through the deadly bus stop section, and HF18 really does not get the best run out of there, so we're going to be coming up quite quickly on him. And I've got a decision to make here, whether I just save loads of fuel and stay behind, or do I go for the overtake. And it just seemed to me like he didn't have quite enough pace. I don't know if he was doing extra fuel saving, so I decided to go for the overtake. So we come up the inside. His car was wobbling about quite a bit, which makes me think he maybe had some connection issues, as we get a bit of a bump from Gombaby. Now the bump draft there is great, but the bad thing about that is you can see I was really revving out 6th gear like crazy, and we've outbraked ourselves a little bit. Gombaby's going to come through. Net effect is that we've stayed in 10th place, but we have used quite a bit more fuel there than we would have wanted to, so I think I'm definitely down on my fuel saving objective at the moment. Now, a bit of a bump to pass there from HF18, but I don't think it was intentional. I think this was connection for him. He gets hammered with a 3-second penalty, then again lifts off. I think honestly there he was probably trying to let me through, but just maybe didn't do it in the best place, and then does eventually let me through just before this corner here. At the end he apologised for that, and I think it was just a bit of a mistake on his part. He knew he had bad connection and wanted to let me pass, but just maybe chose the wrong part of the track to do so. But either way, we're still in 10th place, but this has meant that Gombaby's managed to pull off and is 1.5 seconds ahead. So coming through here again to the bus stop, and HF18's now got Scrabster chasing him down, who's managed to recover from his earlier grass activities. As we come round here for 1 lap to go, we are going to have literally 1 lap of fuel left, so we've managed to catch up just that little bit that we need, but it is still right on the cusp. We could easily use more than 17% of fuel on a lap, so still going to have to keep a little bit of an eye on things. And we have got Scrabster and got Max Power now chasing us down, who are a pair of quick drivers, so we're going to try what we can to get into some slipstream here as the French driver battles with Gombaby in front, which is going to hold them up, and that is going to mean that we manage to catch up a little bit. And now what are we going to do on this last lap to see if we can keep a top 10 spot? As we know on this track, as I've been saying, in this race there's loads of opportunity for all sorts of drama to happen, so more than ever I think it's worth not backing out, even if you have a bit of an error in these races. That 3-second penalty really could have ended my race and considered it over, but we've managed to fight back to a decent position here, and due to all of that fighting we're well in the slip now for this back straight, which is going to help first of all with holding off the drivers behind, but also it looks like we've got an opportunity to go for 8th or 9th place here. So that fuel counter is flashing red down on the left hand side. We've got half a lap of fuel left as we come round to just about halfway, so I'm still using fuel maps here as we are in the slipstream, just to make sure I'm not in any danger of running out. And Scrabster there goes for a move up the inside, which I just really don't think is a good place to go for an overtake, so I was fairly firm there with holding him off, but I think that's fair game. He's on the outside trying to go round for a move. Now Rimke here I think is running out of fuel, and he's indicating for me to go round to the right hand side. I think he's having to use fuel maps because I've got not the best run as we come out of the bus stop there. We are going to be side by side. Am I going to get up into 9th place just before the finish line? He's got the inside, but we're going to come as far to the left as we can, and I just take 9th place off of him. I mean, that was ridiculously quick for our finishing times, but yeah, we do manage to just sneak past there in what was 0.03 of a second, so really close racing. I've had loads of fun racing this Daytona race this week, and I hope this is going to continue for next week, if it is next week that they change the races. Thanks very much if you stuck with us through the race there, and please do drop a like if you enjoyed it. And now we're going to get into how to get the 2 free cars. So this is something, if you're already very familiar with sport mode, that you might know from previously in Gran Turismo Sport, which I think is the first time that you could do this. But if you go into sport mode, you'll see below the daily races you'll have two different championships you can enter. You've got the Nations Cup and the Manufacturers Cup. Now you don't have to have any intention to actually do these races. All you need to do is go in and enter. It will ask you to confirm that you definitely want to enter that particular DR league, and you'll see you have all the manufacturers here to choose from. Now I was curious about the new Ford GT Group 3 car they've added in, and it's 1 million credits. Now with credits being so hard to come by, I was most curious about driving that car, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't really want to grind for 1 million credits to get it, so I'm going to sign up with Ford. I don't have the Group 4 Mustang either, so I'm going to choose that car. There's only one choice with this manufacturer. Some of the manufacturers you go into, you can choose multiple cars from, or choose between multiple cars, for each class. You choose one Group 4 and one Group 3 car, and then select a signed contract. Now, when you sign the contract, it literally gives you those cars for free. So you see a nice animation here of them dropping off your new, in my case, Ford vehicles, or it could be Mercedes or Porsche or McLaren or whoever you go for. And that is literally going to be 2 free cars. So I've got about 1.5 million credits worth of free cars there. I know that with this particular game, grinding for credits is absolutely a pain in the backside, especially since they nerfed some of the races that people were using to get a lot of credits. So there's a top tip there for anybody who didn't know that. Thanks so much for tuning in for the video, and there'll be lots more coming in the coming weeks, as well as tuning videos for all of the daily races. So please do drop a like if you haven't already, consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the week for some more racing. Thanks very much.